Hello, this is Mike Predator06 with StocksPoker.com. Today we are going to shift from our 9-handed PLO8 table to a 6-handed, and a lot of the key concepts are the same about seat preference and positional play. We're going to be involved in a lot more pots and therefore have to make a lot more post-flop decisions, and that's going to be the basis of this video. We just sat down at two tables, um, a 1-2 table on the right and a 50-cent dollar on the left. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet this extremely strong ace-ace hand. We flop the nut low and a pair of aces, and we'd be willing to play for our stack in this situation. A lot of the time with an ace-ace, I'm not going to be raising from the blinds. But this was too strong versus an extremely aggressive player that we were going to do it every time. Well, not every time, but. Alright, good start. We will go ahead and check behind because we have quite a bit of showdown value. We don't want to get pushed off the hand if he check raises us. We have the third nut low draw in addition to our boat. Now we have the nut low as well as the overboat. And our opponent had 2-4 king king. I probably play it the same way as he did, actually. You'll notice on both tables I did start with a full stack. That concept remains the same over all PLO8 tables. You definitely want to sit with a full stack because you want the opportunity to quarter or free roll someone for their whole stack rather than half a buy-in. At this table we have two strong players, Jacks and Coons, in my opinion. I have quite a bit of information on Coons on PokerStars. He doesn't play too much on full tilt, obviously. And I probably, now that I see him on here, I should go ahead and create an alias in HUD so it picks up that information also. Anytime I come into a pot, I'd say, well, 95% of the time, I'm going to be raising pre-flop. I'm going to make quite a few calls behind if I have position and someone raises. So now we have a wrap. We have the about 5th nut low. And we're going to go ahead and call here. It's questionable. We do have position if that's the best card in the deck for us. Wonderful. So let's look around this table and kind of figure out a general strategy. If you look at my HUD, I've got VPIP, pre-flop raise, called pre-flop raise, and 3-bet percentage. The bottom line is flop continuation bet, fold to flop continuation bet, number of hands, and total dollar amount. So we look around the table and we have an extremely aggressive player across the table from us. We have a weak player that plays a lot of pots pre-flop and doesn't raise really at all. And we only have 30 hands on this player behind. Actually, this hasn't updated yet. He's no longer sitting here. It's a new player, so give it a hand or two and the HUD will update. In the big blind with this strong of a hand, we're not going to let someone limp in without raising here. And we totally whiffed. We'll go ahead and continuation bet. Now we need to get out and pray for a 4 on the river. So we have 2 pair. If he was calling with the nut low draw or the flush, he hit on the river. We'll go ahead and check behind with our 2 pair. It's a weak play for him not to bet, and wow, I did not expect to scoop that hand. He had bottom 2 pair. So looking around at this table, we are in a very good seat, in my opinion. We have some aggressive players over on this side. Coons is somewhat aggressive. I am going to fold the bad king-king from whatever position I am at the table. But ideally we want, I've got 2 stats on my HUD highlighted. I'll review this for my 9-handed video. The third one over here is called pre-flop raise. Ideally you want some tight players to sit behind you in this category. So we definitely don't want to sit in front of jacks, because when we raise pre-flop 31% of the time he's going to call us, and we want to be in position throughout the hand. So he had 2 pair last time. Let's go ahead and bet here, so he'll check it down on the river and our 2 pair may be good. Thinking a lot of time he's on a flush draw there. Some of the time he has maybe ace king low. No need to bet on the river. We had showdown value. And he had flush draw with a backdoor low draw. So that top stat is very important to me when I choose my seed and my strategy at a table. We definitely would prefer to have tighter players behind us in that category. Now looking at the bottom line, I've got 1 highlighted category, and it turns green. It's green, yellow, and red depending on the percentage of the player, but green is someone that I'm going to continuation bet much more than a red player, assuming that I don't have a big hand, because if you're folding 83% of the time that someone continuation bets, they should be doing it every time. So as opposed to someone like, well, there's no one really at these tables that jumps out at me as someone that I shouldn't continuation bet. Well, this guy, for example, he folds 33% of the time versus 83 over here. Yes, a nut low. I am very dependent on my HUD in cash games. That's typically why I don't do more than 8 tables of cash, but if I play sit and goes, I'll typically do quite a few more because I don't rely as much on my HUD statistics for sit and goes as I do on cash games. Uh-oh, you just got counterfeited. Are you going to bet it again? Yes. Let's see if he had 2-4. No. That's a terrible play. Let's look at that hand. And he left. That's too bad. So we had a limp pre-flop, demolish or raise, and I believe he just calls behind. So 750 in the pot, and he's getting free rolled and chooses to raise. Terrible play. Alright, we're in first position. On a 6-handed table, I don't come in with many limps. This is not a bad ace-2. It's not great. You got the 6 for the over wheel. Excuse me. And you've got a suited ace, so we're going to be raising here. So we flopped like 4th nut low, 5th nut low, pair of aces, and we need to get out. Unfortunately, I don't have too many hands on many of the players on this either of these tables. Typically I call versus a more of an unknown player, but he's a very thinking player and tough to play against out of position post flop. I'm gonna go ahead and fold there. It's pretty weak, I know, but I'm a very big proponent of playing raised pots in position versus out of position. Here we have an open-ended straight draw and a bad low, and we are drawing for half the pot, and this is an insta fold. If he if he has any ace 2, ace 4, ace 5, 2 4, 2 5, we are beat for the low and being free rolled and have to draw out to get the high. I will be raising this if it gets to me without being open. Being in position when you raise, obvious concept is you can win a hand by having a good hand or making a play. This is a perfect opportunity to check behind here because we are, well, Coons is telling us he has a flush. We won't draw to our low. We're going to check behind again. There's a case for betting here. And do I want to bet if it's checked to me with a nut low with no pair? I think I'm gonna. The reason why you would probably want to bet there, being that they didn't show any strength for either. I mean, there's when this flop comes out and no one bets into it a couple times, and that turn comes out and no one bets, no one really has a high hand. So first of all, my ace queen may be good for a high, but since I don't have a high hand at all, I want to go ahead and bet that nut low because if I check, I know I'm getting half, but if I bet, I have a good opportunity to get the whole pot. So even though I don't have a high, and you know, if I got raised, then you know somebody probably has a better high than my ace queen. But when they both check into me 3 times, I'm going to go ahead and bet there every time. I mentioned my play out of the blinds is somewhat tight for a raise for if somebody opens, but I'm also not going to play bad hands from the small blind, even though I'm getting essentially great odds to call. I don't want to get caught up in a non-nut hand, which 9-7, 3-6, and many other somewhat decent hands from the small blind could look like you can hit a flop. You're never going to really have a nut hand with that. If you do hit some type of straight, there's a low on the board. This isn't as much as a raise because I have a good hand, but it's a positional play. We will bet fold to any raise or any action. Posture for a second, just because. The goal in raising is obviously to try to get position throughout the hand. Anytime you limp, you attract people behind you to do the same thing. Even with a you know average PLO8 hand, we're going to want to raise. Uh, I'm going to check behind here. I don't want to get pushed off the hand, um, and I'm going to give bet about $12. Give him bad odds to call if he has a low draw. I'd be in a tough spot if he pushed there, because I really, if he doesn't have a better ace, he has a low draw. So if he would raise there, I'd be in a tough spot. But I definitely didn't want to give a free card to give somebody an opportunity to hit some type of random low that they had. I'd watch out for coons in the sand. Ace King will win this hand. Chances are no one has. There's not too many combinations that give anyone a boat. Um, yeah. Got that 35% called pre-flop raise guy here. We totally whiff. Did he whiff? Can we bet him off of it? You know, my continuation bet percentage is on the lower side for a lot of the aggressive regulars, and I consider myself somewhat aggressive. Um, but I didn't have. I guess there's more of a case to continuation bet when you either don't have anything or you. I'm gonna call one time here. If you don't have anything or you have a monster, if your hand has some value, some equity in it, you obviously want to. He's milking us. That's fine. And it's probably bad for me to be check calling those small bets out of position like that. Hey, I scoop with my ace nine. What do you say? My low draw was not good. Um, I'm not getting scooped at too many cards other than a 6, really. Should I be an avid note taker? That's something that I would put on him, that he makes small bets with the nut low draw, um, to try to get to the river for cheap. I didn't pay too much attention to this hand, but we will be raising. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and limp here. It's a good card for us. going to be calling one person's bet. Now the second calls, and um, somebody should have an ace 3 here, and my high's not good. Um, do I have the potential to raise and isolate someone that just has ace 3 or just has a high hand? That's something you really want to look at here. Um, he he's the caller. I doubt that. Unfortunately, if these guys' stacks were different and he was the aggressor, I would have raised potentially to push Coons off the hand. But I don't think that my second nut low is good here. I'm just gonna get out, and it was. That's an interesting play by him. That's extremely weak. He's got the second nut straight. You could have 10-9, but I doubt that anybody had it there. See, this is a hand that has such, you know, average two-way, but well, not bad low, not great low, but with the straight there, that's something I'd be willing to risk my whole stack to try to push out someone that had an ace 3, so I potentially could win the low. Um, I still like my play there. Unfortunately, a lot of my hearts were out. I guess I should be playing my queen 4, 6, 7. So, well, let's see. What did Coons do there? That check was most likely to see if Adrian had a queen and half pot bet. Um, took it down. Coons is a tough player to play against. Unfortunately, a lot of times he ends up getting all in a little bit later than optimal. But just having the capability to be involved in large pots and sometimes he'll be a little light and sometimes he'll be extremely strong. But just that kind of person's tough to play against. So we have someone with a small stack. Do we want to choose to raise from the big blind? A little bit smaller stack, and I probably would. We'll go ahead and check behind here. We'll be betting if he checks anytime here. The only hands that really check behind on that flop would be an ace or a queen high flush. Bad flushes like to bet there to see where they're at. And since he didn't bet, if he comes over the top, he's got the nut flush or second, one of the higher flushes. Even the queen, he may throw out a half pot bet or something like that. But anytime he checks that behind, I'm going to be betting there. Ace isn't a great card for my hand, but it took it down. This table, as you can see in general, is extremely loose pre-flop. You got, if somebody raises, which these guys are doing somewhat often, you have a 30, a 39, a 35, a 50, and a 19% of the time they'll get calls. It's going to be an action table. not a nut. Let's look at this hand. Big Dave's play. So we have a raise. Big Dave's first mistake was calling the raise with a 3-5-5 hand. Now that he did that, he wants to try to check raise for a stack on this flop. Never really just so he did check raise for a stack, and now he's more or less committed, hoping that he got counterfeited with the ace 2, but he had ace 2-3 uncounterfeitable for the wheel. Don't need to be playing that crap for a raise pre-flop. You just get in trouble with it. We'll raise this ace-ace. Want to see my nuts as an extremely tight player. I don't mind him anywhere over on either side of me, because I know if you're on this side of me, I'll have position, and I can narrow your range down quite a bit. Someone please 3-bet. Try to steal it. Alright, there's a somewhat high probability that one of these players has a 3 in their hand. There's 16 cards in their hand. We do have the nut flush draw. We do have the ace. Aces. We have no low draw now. Could fold. Alright, do we want to raise here? The only hand that I can see beating is a 4-7 or a Jack 4. But the only hand, I don't really think that somebody can have pocket 4s calling a raise in the big blind. So we're going to go ahead and raise here. They probably have the low, but should they have a 7-4 or Jack 4? Well, if they had a 7-4 without a low, they'd bet the flop because they don't want a low to come out. But we'll go ahead and raise here because there's an extremely low chance that they have 4-4. That's interesting that you kind of assume someone from early position. Here's kind of something that you'll pick up is you assume that someone in early position would check this pair board if they have it, looking to check raise for their stack if they had it, ace 3 or better. So this bet is extremely believable, and then with the call, well, I've got both nut flush draws blocked. I don't see. I can understand the bet with air. I don't understand the call not being able to call the raise right there. I don't see what they would be calling with. Well, Coon's left. Okay, we've got a 13-5 player that limp. Typically, I would raise this, but I'm not going to get involved right now. Got shot. Bad low draw. We're going to check behind. There's so many cards that give us a lot of potential on the turn that we'd be able to bet. Um, I don't think I'll get check raised here. And this $4 bet, well, I have absolutely no high. Um, he may have been calling with the flush draw. Go ahead and bet. You know, the reason I bet on that turn, even though it was an apparent miss, is if he's calling with a low draw, we're going to fold that out of position. Oh, I would have been in position, but if he's calling with a low draw, any card that doesn't make a low, I can bet on the river and take it down. And if I didn't see him check raise, and there's, the only hand that really does that would be a 9-8. And I had a feeling once he checked that river, if he had an ace-3 with anything halfway decent, he would have bet. If he has an ace-3 without anything, he probably would have check called. But you know, I it's just as probable that he was on a flush draw, even though he didn't play it strong, versus the low draw there. So that gives me a chance to win the whole pot rather than just half by betting that river. Well, if this table dies, I'm gonna have to find another one here. Get on the wait list for a couple others. Alright, we have an extremely strong hand. We've got top pair with a nut low draw. We're going to check call. If we hit hard, we're going to check raise. If we kind of hit, I'm going to check call again. And now I'm going to pop bet. I think my 10 would be good for high if he does have the ace-3. I am rapidly trying to find another table to join. So 2-4 table running with 4 players. Unless something else jumps up, I'm going to sit in this table. We're down to 4 here also. Fold this. Even though the ace is suited and it looks kind of good, it's way too uncoordinated without a potential good low, and the 9 and the 6 and the king are just, they can't make enough combinations to justify going on in the hand. Currently in the session, we've played 36 minutes and we're up $51. We're running right with our EV here after 115 hands at 20 and 14, which is on the tighter side here for 6-handed for me. I'm usually in the mid-20s on 6-handed games. That's close. So I'd be kind of in trouble here. I think I'd be committed to these two guys. I'd raise here if he didn't call as much pre-flop for 39% there. I raise into a tight player there. I would if I was on the button for sure. We've got a... Yeah, I was in bad shape. That just... You see his raising range from the button. That's pretty... I mean, he potted that into a couple limpers from the button. That's pretty wide. And the funny thing is, he's only 6%. So I've got a second nut low draw with 2 pair. I would love everyone to get out, and I probably... I could isolate there, and I'm going to bet with my 2 pair, assuming that he was on a low with maybe a queen. Low draw with maybe a queen. If that, he could just be on a low draw. And if he happens to have a better high than me now, I can obviously hit a low. Well, that's a good card. Can't see him fold. Well, he had a low. He had a low draw, that's it. Absolutely no high, or he would have had to call. I think I'd have to call there with ace-king high. But you see, the reason for betting that turn is because if we check behind, he gets to try to hit his ace-2 for free. We're betting that turn, assuming that we have the high that he was playing for the low, and you know, if he happens to have it, then I do have outs. So, and I'm not, if I checked and he bet, I'm not ever folding there with that turn apparent brick card. I may have to get on the wait list for a couple more tables just in case this breaks. I don't think that this player likes to play too much short-handed, so. If you've seen my 9-handed video, you'll know that it's a huge difference with post-flop play. There's a lot more decisions you have to make post-flop because you're involved in quite a few more hands. That 20% from my HUD is extremely low. 19.5. I'm never really in that range for 6-handed. It's just kind of worked out for this session. You know, another move that we could have made is to raise to isolate the guy with 2 pair and second nut low. But with a full stack and Peace Devil, who seems to be on a little rush here, sitting behind us, I didn't want to commit myself to playing for stacks with that hand yet. I could have been easily killed by somebody, but I was definitely ahead of their range. But I could have been killed. Well, that's good. This side filled up. If he checks, we'll pretty much check call any river for Three big blinds here. We may even bet it. Um, is there a reason to call here? It's too small of a pot to care. That jack's a good card for us. And should I have called the turn, I definitely would call, or maybe even bet. No, I wouldn't bet the river. I'd definitely check call the river. So 4, 5, 7, 1. So I would have barely missed the low and won the high. Once again, I'm not going to complete with crap. I raise with crap, I won't complete with crap. Gazoo here is playing 47% of their hands. I would definitely open up my raising range from the button. That's probably a little too far. But if I could isolate someone playing half of their hands with a halfway decent hand, I would love to do that. We didn't really get opportunity to look at playing PLO type hands, the high connected hands, the good king king queen 10 type hands. Haven't really had that come up in this video. In the future, I had intentions to consider a video of all how to play PLO hands when you're playing PLO 8. And since that didn't come up here, I think that may be my next one. Jax is a good player, but Jax really respects my game, so I can make some moves against him. Well, I think he does, but should he be a member of Stocks and laughs that I said that? Maybe I'm wrong, but he lays down a lot of hands against me. This person has a low, whether or not they have the high. Oh well. Good hand rating, Brad. Yeah, it's not worth raising here, trying to push someone off anything. They either have you beat with a high or they have a low, so it's a good call there. Ace Ace 210, suited ace in the big blind. Should he raise? I'd 3-bet. Should he raise? I'm going to go ahead and raise here. That 2 is a bad card for my hand. If it's a low card, okay, let's look at this one. If it's a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I would probably check call and then fire if I hit the nut low with my pair of aces on the river, assuming that I would quarter him. You know, if he had an 8, he'd pop it. That's about the only 8 or kings are the only hands that he could have that that would pop me there. And I I would lay down to a raise there. I would lay down if he raised me on that turn. I'd have to. But he's more likely to call with a low draw than he is to raise unless he has king or 8, which I would have been in bad shape. Or kings or an 8, which I would have been in bad shape anyway. But I really don't, with having the low counterfeited, I don't think the right move is to check that turn. You want to bet and try to pick it up, and if you don't, if he calls, he's on a low draw with maybe a king, and if he raises, he has me beat. You can see the extremely different styles, especially at this table. You have two people playing half their hands, but one's raising 20%, the other one's only raising 5%. You have, somewhat typical PLO8 player playing in their 20s with a low preflop raise percentage. Another high, 46%. This is a good action table. I would enjoy playing at this table for a while. Well, here's one of the high PLO hands that we talked about. I would actually prefer to have a king in my hand than an ace because he obviously has an ace in his hand. So, that takes away from the combinations that I'm going to hit two pair and things like that. Well, I'm going to call and bet out on the turn. I will be betting anything that doesn't complete a low. That's a great card for me to bet. He's calling with a low draw. Maybe he may have aces here, but I don't think he could call. So it's kind of a float with the intentions of stealing. Now when that low heart comes out, that gives someone a low draw. I gave him bad odds to call for his low draw. And when that 8 came on the river to pretty much guarantee that if I had a king I was good, he can't call with aces there. I don't even think he could call with an 8 with how I played the hand. With it looking very apparent that I had a king. So there's the pred move of the day. But the thing is, with a king, I probably play it the exact same way. So it's got to be believable. And a king's a card that I would have a lot of times in my hand, calling a raise, even though it was a min raise. We have a 3-bet from the small blind here. It's an interesting check. If you're gonna three bet somebody that only has a stack to pot ratio 2.25, you should be betting that flop every time and calling if he shoves with any overpair. Now he bet his potential overpair and somebody's representing a 7. But I don't think that person probably couldn't have called with just a 7 on the flop, so in general you'll see some extremely poor play at PLO8 tables. That's why long term for me it's been profitable. We just have to continue getting the traffic up. Obviously, you look at these tables, I don't have a huge amount of hands on anyone. There are some players that I have 10,000 hands on. So it's if we can get some fresh meat in here, it's a very low variance game, and in the long term, if you just play a nice solid style, you should have no problem winning. That's a amazing play right there. Not amazing, but pretty donkish. Let's kind of see. Well, they only have 46 behind. Never mind. I don't never really will three bet there with a king, queen in my hand. King, queen, 7. That's a poor play. So what do we do when someone makes a poor play? We tell them nice hand. Ha. Keep coming back. Alright, we'll probably play about another round here. We will fold to any raise in the big blind with jacks. So we made a move against this person last time. And we will be folding this time. Ha, thanks. Notice the two different stakes. A lot of times the games that I'm playing, I'm jumping in everything from $100 tables and up because, the player pool's kind of small. There's not a whole lot of games going on at any given time, so, it's not uncommon to see someone playing, a couple, that Coons guy that was here, he was playing in a $100 table and a $1,000 table on Stars. A couple weeks ago. I remember that specifically because I teased him about it. While we finish up here, when we're not in a hand, let's kind of look at the stats for the session. So, I guess my EV running exactly what my actual earnings means that I didn't really get to a all-in type of showdown. I didn't really get to an all-in showdown where I had X amount of equity in a hand and it either held up or didn't. I played the session by just I probably didn't get to many showdowns. So that's interesting to have that stat. But all in all, it was an extremely tight session, 17.1%. 11% pre-flop raise. I 3-bet that aces in the beginning. Average aggression factor for me, but this is a good number, 62.5 on money at Showdown. And all in all, a winning session, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. In the future, what I'm going to look forward to doing is playing PLO hands in PLO 8, all your high connected hands, as well as probably coming up in the very near future is heads up cash and maybe even heads up sit and go video. So Mike 6 for Stocks Poker, thank you, and feel free to ask me any questions on the forum.